So hey, question. What's your favorite anime, movie, TV series, book, video game, etc., etc., and what exactly does it mean to you? Why does it have such a special place in your heart, and why does it evoke such strong feelings in you? You could no doubt write thousands of words praising your favorite franchise and what makes it so good. And I think that's pretty cool. I love seeing people fight and defend their favorite things. And this is what I think is the central theme behind the sequel movie to the Gridman series, Gridman Universe. I absolutely adore the Gridman anime franchise. There's just something about mecha series and how well they're able to tightly knit their themes and messages into over-the-top robot action. And Gridman as a whole isn't shy to this. Both SSSS Gridman and its sequel SSSS Dynazenon are two series that have such heartfelt messages and subtext in them that even someone struck by the reading comprehension devil would be able to pick it up. Hope I'm not giving them too much credit. SSSS Gridman was a story about escapism, its dark side, and helping someone who goes off the deep end and takes things too far. SSSS Dynazenon, on the other hand, is a story about people who carry scars in their hearts, but despite all that were able to overcome it and find companionship. These are two stories that are really touching and could honestly be interpreted in many ways. Two people could have completely different experiences with them and they'd both be equally valid. It's why I love this series so much. To me, it's one of those series that has a really strong rewatch value. If you haven't seen them yet, I implore you to do so. Pause this video, go binge both Gridman and Dynazenon, and then come back. I'd say go watch Gridman Universe 2, but it actually isn't on any streaming sites at the time of recording, so yeah. And don't ask me how I was able to watch it. Arrgh. If you don't want to go through all that or don't remember much about the series but still want to stick around for the video, first off, thanks a lot, and second, don't worry, I'll do my best to bring you all up to speed. Major spoilers ahead though. Gridman Universe acts as a crossover sequel to both Gridman and Dynazenon. However, its main focus is mostly on the main cast of Gridman, giving them, especially main character Yuta, some much needed development. The cast of Dynazenon, on the other hand, are just there to add some cool flourish to the movie since they all concluded their arcs in their own series. What this movie does best is giving us, the fans, some much needed closure to both series. That and some amazingly insane mech fights filled with campy explosions and hype, truly wearing its love for tokusatsu on its sleeves. But really though, hype aside, it's time we actually delved into the movie. Gridman Universe places focus on Yuta again. It's been give or take a year since the events of Gridman happened. Their lives have been fairly normal, however Yuta doesn't remember anything from that time. At the end of Gridman, we find out that Yuta had actually been possessed by Gridman all this time, so Yuta wasn't exactly Yuta but Gridman himself, hence why at the start of Gridman the series, he had amnesia and why now he has no memory of the events that happened during that time. So Yuta, while kind of bummed out he lost 2 months of his life he'll never be able to remember, is still kind of glad that all that happened since it helped him get closer to his friends Utsumi and Rika. His friends being the only people in the entire world who still remember Gridman, and Akane, the antagonist slash protagonist from the series, who was also the god of their world. So the story starts with the trio in the midst of preparing for their school festival. Utsumi and Rika's class are going to be holding a play with the two of them in charge of writing the script. The story the two are working on is a retelling of the Gridman series. Since nobody remembers that time, they want to use this play as a way to get the story out there and keep the spirit of Gridman alive. But that's easier said than done since their script keeps getting rejected, cause apparently the story is too outlandish and lacks realism, so it'll be hard for people to accept and relate to the story, citing the part about Akane specifically being way too unrealistic. The popular girl in class was actually the bad guy who was also a huge tokusatsu nerd, just seems way too unbelievable I guess. Wait till they hear about Hello Kitty girls. The constant rewriting of the script will be a recurring thing throughout the movie. Stuff doesn't really seem to happen for like the first half of the movie, it's mostly just Yuta struggling to find the proper way to ask Rika out while dealing with seeing strange apparitions. Things really start to get weird when a kaiju pops out of nowhere, causing Yuta to hear Gridman's call once again, springing into action to fight the kaiju, but seeing that he's actually fighting for the first time, he doesn't do too well and fumbles a lot. This is when Dyna Rex shows up to help Gridman in defeating the kaiju and using his fixer beam, aka the Deus Ex Machina, to fix the whole town back together. After that, we find out that Dynarex is actually Galma, who's been reincarnated as its host. After this, the Dynazenon crew suddenly starts showing up in their world, running into the Gridman crew, who all converge at Junk Shop, giving us a touching reunion between Komogi and Galma. But why are the Dynazenon crew suddenly here? Well, it looks like their universes are starting to collapse and meld together, which will lead to a reverse of the Big Bang that they call the Big Crunch. But there's nothing the characters can really do about it now, only staying on guard in case the next kaiju attacks. So in the meantime, the characters are just killing time. Utsumi and Rika have had to rewrite their scripts 2 more times, and Yuta, seeing as the world might be ending soon, sees now as a good time to confess his feelings to Rika. He just needs to find the right time. We get more character interactions with the Dynazenon kids, Yomogi, Yume and Chise, showing up at Yuta's school to help them with their Gridman play. In this scene, the characters all try to draw Gridman from memory, presenting different amateur sketches of what they think Gridman looks like to them. They're all little doodles, but Yuta sees them as important enough to pocket for later. So Utsumi and Rika's script finally gets approved after changing up a lot in the story, adding the Dynazenon crew, and writing Akane out of it. Yuta, however, isn't too fond of the new version since he feels that taking out that part also meant taking out a lot of the central story beats integral to the series as a whole. He's right after all. Gridman wouldn't exactly be Gridman without Akane. On the other side of things, Galma finally meets his princess again. For those out of the loop, Galma is actually a reincarnated mummy from an ancient kingdom who swore to protect the princess till his dying breath. His first appearance actually dates back to the OG Hyper Agent Gridman Tokusatsu show, where he was a mummy brought back to life. Pretty cool, huh? Anyway, Galma sees her again and he finally gets some closure after 5,000 years. She tells him to stop being so hung up on the past and focus on the future instead. Galma has been holding himself back from actually moving forward with life because of his longing for her, but now he's resolved to focus on his future instead. This meeting finally gives us the rest of that saying of his that we never get to completely hear back in Dynazenon. Quote, "There are 3 things important for people to keep: promises, love, and best by dates." What best by dates means here is about how nothing lasts forever, so just enjoy the things you have in the moment. It's good advice, honestly. And now is when things start to really get weird. Yuta finds the old scripts his friends were working on in the trash and inquires about it. They talk about it in past tense as if they were already done with the play and the school festival altogether, which just confuses Yuta because he doesn't remember the school festival ending. In fact, he was just in school yesterday. Nobody seems to notice anything wrong except Yuta. Everyone is just hanging around, laughing and being chummy with each other, acting like nothing's wrong at all. Then Alexis Carib from the first series shows up, claiming to be Rika's father, and everyone is just cool with it. Now Yuta knows something is really up and we are treated to an amazingly animated breakdown scene. Just then, another kaiju appears, and yet again Gridman can't take it on and is saved by Grid Knight, who shows up with backup. The whole crew gets together for another awesome action scene and crazy combination sequences, and they beat the kaiju. But just as things are done, another Grid Knight appears out of nowhere and stabs Gridman through the chest, causing him and the Dynazenon cast to glitch out of existence. The real Grid Knight, aka Auntie, and Anacillus show up with Yomogi. Now we get to really understand what exactly is going on and the conflict of this film. So all of this is being caused by Gridman himself. He's the one who summoned the Dynazenon cast here as well as the kaiju, though unintentionally. You see, Gridman was initially formless, but was given shape by humanity, and because he was so close to humanity, he too later gained the ability to create, making his own universe. But then, since Gridman has no actual form, he began to expand and envelop the universes he created, merging all of them into one, which is what brought the Dynazenon cast here. But it's not like Gridman is doing this on purpose. Someone or something else is making Gridman do this. So the goal now is to get Yuta back to fuse with Gridman again, shake off the external force controlling Gridman, and then fix everything. But that's not going to be easy because a bunch of kaiju have spawned and are directly targeting the main characters. So while they try to fend off the kaiju, Yuta makes it back to go fuse with Gridman. Nothing. Yuta experiences nothing. Until a familiar voice coming from a real eye speaks to him. It's Akane. This was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Since Akane is basically a god, she gives him a bit of exposition and helps him find his way to Gridman, diving through his memories. Yuta comes face to face with Gridman. Gridman, glad Yuta was able to reach him, is also filled with immense guilt. He feels guilty for taking over Yuta's body for 2 whole months, robbing him of his time and the memories of those months. He apologizes for it, but Yuta isn't bothered about that. It's thanks to Gridman they were able to save Akane, and it's thanks to Gridman Yuta was able to form meaningful connections with the people around him. And Gridman himself truly did enjoy the life he lived as Yuta, actually having fun. The two show how grateful they are to each other, and with a fist bump, begin their fusion. The Gridman sketches from before fly out and merge together, giving Gridman a new form. And watching all this is real life Akane, who uses her powers to jump into the anime world again and help the universe she loves so dearly, getting a magical girl transformation and unsealing Alexis to create a new giant of fighting. They find the entity behind this, a kaiju who's been holding Gridman hostage, and he's not too happy to see them. The kaiju, personification of negative human emotions and housing a kaiju nest in its chest, is the antithesis of Gridman. Gridman is a being who brings order, but this kaiju uses Gridman to accelerate chaos. The kaiju says, quote, "I captured Gridman to upset the balance of the universe and destroy everything." Akane is able to fight back and break the hold it has on Gridman, letting Gridman truly be free. And thus, Gridman Universe is born. Everyone is back. We get this absolutely adorable scene of Yomogi and Yume, and we're treated to like 25 whole minutes of pure, unadulterated mecha action. They even throw in the OPs from both seasons to add to the hype. They're able to beat the big bad with a super flashy beam and fix everything with Gridman's fixer beam. The end of the movie gives us even more closure with Akane and Knight, which brought a tear to my eye, I won't lie. Yomogi and Galma are finally able to have a proper farewell, and Yuta confesses his feelings to Rika, who feels the same way too. The end. This movie was such a treat for anyone who's an avid fan of Gridman. This is fan service in its purest form. Gridman Universe to me is about the power fiction has on people and the strength of fandoms and how they influence the media we consume. It's quite the consistent theme throughout the movie, so let's dive into it proper. Humans, the only species able to create and believe in fabrications, taking them as real in some cases. It's through these fabrications, or rather, fiction itself, that we've been able to build connections with others and foster communities that share like-minded interests. We take the things we consume and turn them into little bits of us, slowly shaping us into the people we are today. I'm sure you have 1 or 2 pieces of fiction that have been more than fundamental to your growth as a person. And this is what Gridman Universe is about, the relationship between people and the media they consume. The main conflict of the movie plays into this, with Gridman himself losing his form and swallowing all the universes, but this brings the question of what exactly is Gridman in the first place. From the backstory we get, we see that Gridman was initially a formless being until humanity came in and gave him shape. Gridman is an idea. Gridman is the very franchise itself. Gridman is media. And it's through Gridman that other entries to the franchise, other universes like Dynazenon, were created. And because of this, Gridman has become the very universe the characters reside in, which has quite literally led to his loss of identity and what makes Gridman, Gridman. This is quite on the nose as it really reflects the current state of multimedia franchises as a whole. Think about one of your favorite franchises that has been around for decades now. Think about how, despite the main story or idea that kicked it off has ended, the IP holders are still able to create new stories set in that universe as part of the franchise to varying degrees of success. Looking at you, Disney and Marvel. But despite all that, there's still someone out there who resonates with that IP strongly. So if Gridman is the embodiment of a franchise, and I use the word franchise as an umbrella term, what then does that make the characters, and specifically Yuta? The characters are, well, characters. The cast of the first series, Utami and Rika, are just that. Fabricated people created from the mind of one person, made to play out a specific role, but even after their roles were done, they have continued to live on, despite how they may be perceived. They are still their own people. How you perceive them, how you interpret them and their actions does not change them from the fact that they are what they are. Yuta, on the other hand, is a different case. He represents the fans. He's the embodiment of a fandom. So now his relationship with Gridman makes a lot more sense, huh? At the start of the Gridman series, Yuta gets taken over by Gridman, living his life for 2 whole months before finally returning to whence he came. The way I see it, these 2 months were of someone who really got into the franchise. They absorbed as much as they could, and when they were done, they kind of moved on to something else. I guess that's just how hyperfixations work. Yuta not remembering anything from Gridman the series is telling of how, no matter how much time you spent consuming that franchise, you can't possibly remember all of it. That's just normal human nature. But even then, we still have faint memories of them. And this is seen at the start of the movie where Yuta tries to draw up Gridman despite not remembering what he looks like. Yuta begins as a representation of that part of the fandom that gets into the series during its peak popularity and leaves when hype around it dies down. But as the movie goes on, we see Yuta come to reconnect with Gridman. After his first fusion in the movie, we see how sloppy and inexperienced he is fighting kaiju. You can see this as him slowly trying to gain his bearing back on the franchise he enjoyed so much, and by the end of the movie, during the build up to the final fight, is when he fully reconnects with Gridman. This is him fully accepting Gridman again. He doesn't resent the 2 months he lost because it's thanks to Gridman that he was able to get closer to everyone. It was through the media he enjoyed so much that he was able to form meaningful relationships and find a community in it. Now, isn't that just touching? Gridman Universe tells us to wholly and unapologetically embrace the things we love so much. Yes, they may have their flaws, but what really matters is that they meant something to you specifically and you derived joy from them. And this is strengthened more thanks to the other message baked into the movie: how multifaceted the media we consume tends to be. While everyone might watch the same thing, our perceptions, interpretations, and the messages we get from that might be vastly different from one another. This is seen throughout the struggle Utami and Rika face with the script for their play. Their initial story getting rejected because of its absurdity, causing them to make more and more rewrites, even taking out a part of the story that they really wanted to be in, reflects how people pick parts of a story they want to absorb and the parts that they don't. Whether it's conscious or not is up to the individual. And this culminates at the build up to the climax when Yuta reaches Gridman again. It's thanks to the many Gridman doodles the characters made earlier in the movie that Gridman is able to take on a new powerful form. These doodles, these many personal interpretations of Gridman, all come together to make Gridman even better, showing us that all these interpretations are valid cause at its core, it's still Gridman and nothing is going to change that. But in the midst of all that good, chaos can still be created from it. And this is exactly what the kaiju in Gridman Universe are. The kaiju in this movie, or rather the conditions the kaiju spawn under, are vastly different from the previous series. The kaiju were born from the memories of Gridman, and you can see that in their design, taking bits and pieces of Gridman's design and monsterizing them. They are an extension of Gridman. So what do they represent? The kaiju are the murky parts that come with franchises. Maybe there's that one entry in the franchise that was universally hated by fans, maybe there was that one entry that wasn't a financial success. These could all be seen as the many shames the creators have felt, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that they are still part of the franchise. It also explains why these kaijus were a lot tougher to fight this time around. However, the kaiju final boss is a different case altogether. This kaiju is the first one since Auntie who is able to speak. At first we assume it's sentient, but according to Alexis, this kaiju is a replica of human emotions, one that uses Gridman to create and accelerate chaos. So what is this kaiju? The embodiment of toxic fans. Not just any type of toxic fan, the gatekeepy, hate-watching kind. You know the ones, those people who would do nothing but complain about the franchise any chance they get, rather than just leave it behind. They still come back to watch it just to make sure their hating is up to date. The kaiju spout stuff like Gridman is mine, Gridman belongs to me, give me back my Gridman. The kaiju refuses to accept this new Gridman and so wants to destroy him in order to revert him back to the old Gridman. As evil as this kaiju is, I can't help but feel a bit of sadness for it. This is someone who enjoyed Gridman at the start but didn't like the direction the series must have gone and so hates on any new change that comes with the new series. Earlier on in the movie, when Yuta starts to notice how suspiciously good and peaceful everything is, now with the rest of the cast seemingly unbothered about the current state of the world, this was the kaiju's doing. The kaiju wanted the characters and the world to remain completely stagnant, never developing or growing, keeping to the status quo forever and never changing anything else about it, turning into a franchise that will remain the same until its cancellation. Just like The Simpsons. And it's Utah's desire to want to move on with the plot that causes the facade to break apart. And so this kaiju is what Gridman could be when the passion to create a story is taken away. The kaiju wants to gatekeep Gridman from Gridman, and it's able to fight back everyone's combined powers, stating it knows everything about Gridman. Gridman's memories are its memories, so it knows what to expect from them. It's only when they are able to come up with a new power and transformation on the spot, never before seen by the kaiju, that they are finally able to beat it. At the kaiju's defeat, all it can really do is ask who or what exactly is Gridman, since he has the power to both create and destroy, yet is incredibly weak and can't do anything on his own. And to which Gridman responds, yes, he is weak on his own, but he's able to be strong thanks to his allies and Utah. That's who Gridman really is. Proof that a franchise is only as good as the people who support it. So in the end, it's through the fans that Gridman is able to continue existing. And that is damn poetic. Gridman Universe is a movie that feels like a love letter to the fans, and I thoroughly enjoyed the message in it. I watched this like 5 times in the span of scripting this video, and I can only hope we get more stories in the Gridman Universe, but at the same time, I'm pretty satisfied with how things played out and wouldn't be all that hurt if Gridman never adds a new entry into the franchise. I mean, just look at how underrated the series is, with awful marketing that doesn't seem to be doing the series any justice, but I personally have gotten closure from this film and I'm looking forward to the franchise future, even if it only ends up being in the Super Robot Wars series. Anyway, that's it for this video. As always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.